Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
At 6'7" and 330 pounds, Alabama may have found its next dominant defensive tackle. He's still in high school. Four-star defensive lineman Raekwon Davis signed his papers to attend Alabama back on National Signing Day in February. However, his academic eligibility was an issue, so the Meridian Star also pledged to Jones Junior College. However, according to a report from SEC Country, Davis will be eligible to play for the Crimson Tide this fall after all, and that is good news for Bama. And good evening, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Tonight, Rod, Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry. I'm going to probably, boy, I love that sound, but not as much as I enjoy that taste going down. Think about changing out next week, maybe going with regular Pepsi.
That would be good.
You know,
real good.
Yeah, change it out. But Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry, all the great Pepsi products. Remember to pick some up the next time you're at your local grocery store from Buffalo Rock. Well, Raekwon Davis is a big young man, 6'7", 330. And, you know, when he signed with Alabama, you knew he was eventually going to wind up here. But there was some concern, as I said. But the fact that he is going to come here in the summer now and enroll and be ready to go in the fall, this is an area where Alabama lost a lot of great players. 4 defensive linemen from the team a year ago, Reed, Robinson, Lake, and Petway. Does he have a chance to play as a freshman?
Yes, I think so. And the reason you said right there, I mean, when you're looking at depth on the defensive line, it's certainly a need here at Alabama. You look at the first 4 or 5 guys, they're certainly top flight type players that are here now. But I think when you're talking about a guy who can possibly add some depth that's much needed, Raekwon Davis is certainly a guy that can do that. Jamar King's another incoming guy that possibly could do that. And I just think that the more depth they can get out of these guys that they brought in certainly will be the better for this defensive line, because, Gary, last year we got spoiled.
Yeah,
we got spoiled.
You know, one of the big selling points for Davis to come to Alabama, what's going to happen on Thursday night? The draft. You know, with guys like Reed and Robinson going probably in the first round, Davis hopes to eventually make it to the NFL himself. And that draft, as I said, starts Thursday night in Chicago. Alabama could have as many potentially as 4 or 5 players go in the first round, probably 3 for sure. Let's discuss, Rodney, the draft, and not just in terms of it's important for these young men who are about to realize a lifelong dream, but it's kind of just you know, it feeds off each other. You recruit great players, you get them developed, they win championships, then they go on to the NFL, and that's how you recruit more great players. It's a big, big deal for Alabama, not just for the players going on to the NFL, but for this university to continue to recruit top guys.
It is. It's huge. And certainly that's when you talk to high school prospects around the country, Gary, and Alabama attracts high school prospects from everywhere, as you know. That is one of the first things they talk about is Alabama's success in developing the players. Nick Saban calls it the process.
Yeah.
Developing the players on and off the field, student athletes, and then preparing them, giving them an opportunity through what they experienced here to move on to the next level.
Kind of like Back to the Future in some ways. All right, let's talk about the guys on Thursday night that hope to hear their name called in the first round. Let's begin with the 3 R's on defense: Reed, Robinson, and Ragland. We're looking at A'Shawn Robinson, so let's talk about him. Amazing athleticism for a man, 6'4", well over 300 pounds, still just 21 years old, 3-year player at Alabama. I think as good as he was at Alabama, I think there's a lot of room for this guy still to improve right now.
Well, you know, again, you look at him, and he's a fantastic athlete, has all the qualities that you mentioned, Gary, great size. I mean, just a phenomenal athlete for a big man like that. And I never really, as we watched him, certainly didn't detect a motor issue.
I don't know where people are coming up with that. I can't figure that out.
Yeah.
That's just people looking for flaws, man.
And that's what it must be, because that's been the talk this week is he doesn't love the game, or, you know, he doesn't have a motor that runs every play. Well, I never really maybe saw that if you're talking about through his 3-year career here. I mean, when you look at him, he came in as a freshman and made an impact. He had 5 sacks that year. I think he led the team in sacks as an individual. So he continued to get better. This year he had a fantastic year alongside Jaron Reed. I don't see that.
Ask these quarterbacks in the SEC if he's got a motor problem. They'll tell you otherwise. Speaking of Reed, you know, I love Robinson's potential, but right now I think Jaron Reed, I can't imagine, there's some really good defensive linemen in this class. It's one of the deepest defensive line classes in draft history, but I can't imagine a guy being any more NFL ready than Jaron Reed. He could have left last year, Rodney. He came back. He went to junior college. He had a year of prep school. He came to Alabama. his time is now. I think he's a starter from day one in the NFL.
You know what, Gary? I don't think anyone can certainly question Jaron Reed's motor. This guy has all the tools. We've talked about his size, his athletic ability. You know, he's a really strong, powerful guy. And he plays with a motor. He plays with a purpose. And we saw that throughout his career the last 2 years here at Alabama. I think, you know, when you look at him, he may be a little more ready right now as far as, you know, NFL ready than A'Shawn Robinson, but both of them are outstanding prospects.
And at linebacker, Reggie Ragland, a natural-born leader. You know, Rodney, I knew he was a good football player. I'm going to be honest with you. He turned out to be better than I thought he would be at Alabama. He got better every year. As I said, he is a leader by example, also a guy that can rally his team, great character. Now, they question whether he's a three-down linebacker. I think he is. I think he's a good enough athlete. He was a great basketball player in high school to cover in pass situations. I think he'll play three downs.
Yeah, they've talked about his questionable ability in terms of backing up in coverage and that kind of thing, and his movement. But, you know, Reggie Ragland was a fantastic athlete. You saw him in high school, what a great basketball player he was. And, you know, the thing I like about Reggie Ragland, he's a team player. He's a guy that came in, was highly recruited, sat for 2 years. A lot of people wondered, just like you said, Gary, you know, will Reggie Ragland ever play? He waited his opportunity, continued to develop. When that came along 2 years ago, you could just start to see him blossom in 2014, and then had a fantastic year that year, and then this past year as well.
You know, we expect all three of those guys to go in the first round. A couple offensive guys hoping to go in the first round. Although I'm reading, for some reason, Derrick Henry slipping. But let's start with Henry. Whether he goes in the first round or the second round or even the third round, another guy that, quite frankly, I undervalued. I knew he was good, but this past season he put it all together. I know Ezekiel Elliott may be a better pro prospect, but there was not a better running back in the country this past season than Derrick Henry.
Well, and I think one thing about Derrick Henry is everybody looks at him and still says he's not a running back, because you just don't see many guys his size that, you know, are successful as running backs. But, you know, there's one thing about Derrick Henry. I guarantee you this, there's not one player in the draft that wants it, has more desire than Derrick Henry.
Well, if there's some guys like Robinson and Henry that people are questioning, no one's questioning Ryan Kelly. He's a guy that seems to be moving up. Rodney, and the big center, the senior center from Ohio for Alabama, could be a guy that winds up going in the first round.
You talk about a self-made man, self-made player. It's Ryan Kelly. What I mean by that, when he was in high school, Sal Sinceri recruited him for Alabama, went up there and saw him, you know, when he was a younger prospect up in Ohio, and thought this kid would never have it, you know, what it takes to play. The next year he goes up there before his Ryan Kelly's senior year, the spring before his senior year, sees him, looks at how he had developed and the potential that he had, and said, we got to get this guy. And he came here to Alabama. Ohio State didn't recruit him. He comes here to Alabama. Gary, he puts in all the work, does everything he's supposed to do, leaves a Remington a winner, an All-American. So this guy is a guy that will do everything it takes to be successful.
Of course, Kenyon Drake hopes to go in the first three rounds as well. One guy that's not going to be hearing his name called on the first night, probably not the second night, maybe not even the third day, is Jake Coker. Possibly he could get drafted. More than likely, he'll be a free agent. But the more I see of Coker, the more I see of the good old-fashioned just want to and stick-to-itiveness. Ronnie, I think he's going to make a roster. Whether it's as a practice squad player or a backup on the sideline, I think Jake Coker will get a paycheck in the National Football League in 2016, my opinion.
Well, and he's got a lot of tools. There's no question about that, Gary. And I think you're right. He does have a lot of want to. He has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove people wrong, so that may help him a lot in terms of, you know, his approach to what he's trying to accomplish here. So, you know, want to, you can never, ever underestimate that.
Didn't lose a game as a starter last year.
No, he didn't.
Won a national championship.
And people doubted it.
Yeah, pretty good resume. Well, the draft begins Thursday night in Chicago. Still to come on TITV, the football season more than 4 months away, but trash talking already in midseason form when it comes to talking about Alabama. We'll break down the jabs being directed at the Crimson Tide. Plus, Alabama's baseball team suffers a big loss on the field in terms of a crucial injury. Can Mitch Gaspar's squad recover? We'll discuss. And, of course, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. The information on the screen, 205-348-9882. You can call us there, or you can email us, TITV@WVOA23.com, or reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TITV. Brandon and Katarina are waiting for your tweets. We'll be back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. TITV will return right after this. Well, last week, the Rise Tournament of Champions returned to West Alabama. It's a charity golf tournament to benefit the Rise Center of Tuscaloosa. This year, though, it was different. Instead of being played at Old Colony, it was at North River. And instead of former Crimson Tide coach Gene Stallings being the featured host, some of his former players, like quarterback Jay Barker, took over the event.
We're substitutes. We're filling in. But, I think who better than a couple guys that played for him and some other guys who have been around him. And I think the biggest thing is, his presence, his, attitude, his enthusiasm for this, because, Rise came out of his heart for Johnny and out of his love for the kids with special needs and understanding, that they've been through it, done it, and how can we now impact other families and be not only great role models in that situation, but really do something, make a difference.
Well, this is the time of the year for some special golf tournaments. The annual Mal Moore Golf Tournament to support the boys and girls clubs of West Alabama is set for May 5th and 6th. This year, former Alabama basketball coach Wim Sanderson will be the host. And like the Rise Tournament, the Mal Moore will take place at the North River Yacht Club. Still room for some teams. Call 205-553-3819 to enter. 205-553-3819 to enter a team. Well, thanks for keeping it right here on Tider Insider TV. Alabama got the most priceless hardware of the college football playoffs in January. That would, of course, be the National Championship trophy. However, it came with a pretty high price tag. John Solomon of CBS Sports reporting that the Crimson Tide spent nearly $2 million more than Clemson during the playoffs. Bama reportedly spent $7.3 million compared to Clemson's $5.4. $4.8 million of the $7.3 was spent on the Crimson Tide's National Championship trip to Glendale, Arizona. By comparison, Ohio State spent $4.4 million on its two games in the 2014 playoff season into 2015. Well, former Clemson defensive end Shaq Lawson says it's not how much money Alabama spent, Rodney. It was his health primarily. That was the reason the Tigers lost. Last week on the Paul Feinbaum show, Lawson said he was only 50% healthy in the national championship game, and the outcome would have been a lot different if he was 100%. Now, that's not the only trash talk being thrown Alabama's way. This week, Ole Miss defensive lineman Breland Speaks, also speaking on Feinbaum, was asked about beating Alabama. His response, quote, "It's almost expected." Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't say if you can't beat them, join. Ole Miss did beat Alabama the last 2 years, but if I recall, Alabama went to Atlanta, won the SEC championship, played in the playoff, and then last year won the national championship. So if I were Speaks, I don't know that I would be speaking too much about the Crimson Tide.
First of all, they need to win the West.
Yeah.
They're the only team outside of Texas A&M, which is really a relatively new team, obviously, to the West, that hasn't been there. So I think you need to win a little something first before you talk. I do realize you've beaten Alabama 14 times? Ever? Maybe not that much.
A couple of those, I think, are forfeited games.
So
the first time they've ever won 2 in a row.
I mean, this
in back-to-back years,
it's 50 to 14 or whatever it is. So somebody needs to give him a lesson in history.
It is going to be a big game in Oxford coming up in mid-September. As for Shaq Lawson, this is the old Colt McCoy story. In 2009, after 2009 season, a lot of Texas fans still say if Colt McCoy hadn't gotten hurt, Texas would have won. Wouldas, couldas, shouldas. Hey, I like Shaq Lawson. He's a nice player. He's going to have a good career in the NFL. He played in the game. Alabama won. Alabama had guys banged up, too. It's part of football.
Definitely had guys banged up. I go back to the stuff, 2009, national championship game in 2010, actually, January of 2010 against Texas. Colt McCoy got hurt. Greg McElroy was playing with broken ribs,
That's right.
Several broken ribs. These guys, when you get to this part of the season, a lot of these guys aren't healthy. But Shaq Lawson, he went out there, he played a good game. Maybe he wasn't 100%, but I know there's a lot of Alabama players that weren't either.
Bama's got the trophy. They're not giving it back. Sorry, Clemson. The Alabama baseball team is going to have to move on without one of its most consistent offensive players. According to Ben Jones from the Tuscaloosa News, sophomore shortstop Chandler Avant suffered a fractured ankle over the weekend at A&M, likely lost for the rest of the season. Jones talking with head coach Mitch Gaspar. They'd like to get him back, but hey, you know what? Doesn't look likely. He currently leads the team in steals and doubles. He's batting .278, second in RBIs. He is a costly loss for the Crimson Tide, which is already struggling on offense. Well, more to come on TITV after Adam Griffith's lackluster 8A performance. Is the starting kicker job up for grabs? And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. We already told you once how you can get in touch with us. There's the information on the screen. You can also tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with your phone calls and more on the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. The award-winning Tider Insider TV will return. Welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company, which distributes Pepsi, a Southern original, including Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry. Let's get right to the phone lines tonight. Buddy is with us from over in East Alabama and Center. What's up, buddy?
Not much, fellas. I hope y'all are having a great afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I was just going to do a little bragging on our quarterback, Jake Coker. He came up to Gadsden last weekend and done a meet and greet and signing, picture taking, autographing. Just had a wonderful time there for the afternoon. And I just wanted to say I've never met a nicer young man than Jake Coker. I mean, he was just so nice, polite, and friendly that,
Yeah, we're with you, buddy.
We can be proud of him.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. Rodney and I will agree. Having covered him, first-class young man, and as I said, we're pulling for him to make it in the NFL. I think he will.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly, he's a guy, like we talked about, Gary, he has all the tools. And, again, I go back to what I said earlier. He's playing with a chip on his shoulder.
And he will represent Alabama well at the next level as far as being a former player and an alum and all those things. He will do a good job in that regard. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk to Gene. Gene, what's going on, my man?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Gary and Rodney.
This is Gene.
A great program.
This is a lady, Gene. Okay, I'm sorry about that, Gene. How are you?
Oh, we're great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just would like to know why we can't have a great ladies basketball team, develop a championship team with a level of recruits, talent in our state and region.
Right. It's a good question, Gene, one that a lot of people are asking. The only thing I can tell you is, one time under Rick Moody, this was a Final Four program back in '94, consistent contender in going to NCAA tournament and contending for SEC championships. It got down. The program got down. And women's basketball, like a football, a lot of sports in the SEC, when you're on the bottom, you got a long way to go to get to the top. And the only thing I can tell you, Jane, is that it's going to take some time. And I know people don't want to hear it, but Christy Curry has got to get better players. I mean, that's the short answer. I know they've made a few steps in the right direction in terms of recruiting, Rodney, but they've got to get more good players. That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
if you're going to win in this league.
Yeah, when Rick Moody had this program at that level you're talking about, he recruited the number one player in the country 2 years.
Nisha Johnson, Yolanda Watkins, yep.
Dominic Canty.
Yep.
Those were all great players that were recruited by the Tennessees and everybody else. So, again, I think recruiting's the key.
Well, Gene, I think they can. I hope Christy Curry can do it. I think she knows what she's doing. She's been to a championship game before with Purdue. Did a good job at Texas Tech, but got to recruit better, bottom line. All right, let's get a tweet from @Kyle Chapman. Wants to know about the impact of Kirby Smart leaving on the defense. Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. But I'm going to tell you something. Jeremy Pruitt did a great job at Georgia. Jeremy Pruitt was with Nick Saban. You hate to say that you could lose a guy the caliber of Kirby Smart, Rodney, and there not be a drop-off. But I don't think there'll be much of a drop-off.
Well, first of all, people talk about continuity, and certainly Kirby did that, had that here for several years. But Jeremy Pruitt came up under this system. This is where he started, out of Hoover High School. He started under Nick Saban. He understands the system. And, Gary, there are some people that when you talk about Jeremy Pruitt, they think he's one of the better guys in the country in terms of defending these up-tempo, hurry-up, no-huddle type offenses. So it's going to be really interesting to see maybe what he brings to the table in that regard.
Okay, we're going to take a timeout. More phone calls coming up. Also, still to come, Lane Kiffin takes to Twitter to call out some of Alabama's SEC rivals, plus more phone calls, tweets, and emails. You keep it tuned right here to Tider Insider TV, and we'll be back after this. Welcome back to TITV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVOA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Let's get right back to the phones. Tim is with us in Hubbardsville. Welcome in, Tim. How are you?
Hey, good. How you guys doing tonight?
Very well.
Hey, on your grad transfer players, how do they account for them on the numbers?
Okay, Tim, very simple. They take up a scholarship. If a guy comes in like Gary Dieter is this year, he'll count against the 85. You just have to make sure you have a scholarship available for him. Pretty simple. I mean, it'd be a one-year scholarship because obviously he'll be leaving after this year. But unless the guy agrees to walk on, and in this case, you're not talking about a guy that caught over 1,000 yards worth of balls and 10 touchdowns walking on, he'll have one of the 85 scholarships.
Yeah, and he might be wondering about how it applies to the class.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it doesn't count against the recruiting
It's not
class.
an initial because these guys have already signed initial scholarships when they signed with their previous
that's
school.
probably what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It does not count
so
against
it does
that.
not count against 25.
So it's a win-win, really. If the guy can come in and play, he doesn't count against your signing class. He plays here 1 year, and we saw it last year with Mulaney. That can be a big, big addition to your team. All right, I got a tweet from Don Juan. Wants to know about the kicker situation. Everybody concerned about Adam Griffith, Rodney, missing 4 field goals before he finally made one. First of all, Adam Griffith's going to be the kicker. I know there's a transfer coming in from Ole Miss. Adam Griffith's the kicker. Kick return positions, I'll let you answer that one, Ronnie, because that's really where it's up in the air. Do you agree with me on Griffith? He's going to be the kicker.
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, he's really kind of proven himself. I know he's been streaky, but the guy was 23 of 34 last year, and he got hot after a slow start. So, I don't think there's any doubt about Adam Griffith's spot. Now, again, he's going to have to produce. As far as the return guys, right now you're looking at Calvin Ridley, seems to be the number one punt return guy. Now, whether or not it stays that way, I don't know, but Xavier Marks is a guy that looks like he's got a lot of ability, Gary. He's very quick at doing that, and they've got a lot of other athletes that they can look at. Dalen Charlotte among them, or Darius Stewart could also return kicks. So I think there's some of those that you'll see next year.
All right, sorry for the couple of phone callers that we couldn't get to, but we work under time restraints. We'll be back to wrap up TITV right after this. Thanks for your calls. Well, we don't get many opportunities to hear from Alabama offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin, but the former Tennessee and Southern Cal head coach took to Twitter this past week to call out some folks. Kiffin was on a recruiting trip when he tweeted out a picture of a street sign pointing to Knoxville and simply wrote #RTR16. Wow. A day later, he tweeted a picture of an Auburn University sign. He tweeted #5519 and 2913. Now, 2913 was the score of last year's Iron Bowl. 5519, you had to research a little bit. That goes back to when Kiffin was the offensive coordinator at USC, and they plowed over Oklahoma. That national championship was vacated by the Trojans following the 2004 season. Some at Auburn wanted to lay claim to that title, so Kiffin obviously getting a shot in there too, Rod.
Yeah.
A double shot. A double dose.
He beat Auburn a couple of times as the offensive coordinator at USC.
Yeah, so you got to watch this guy. He's slick. Our beautiful shirts and ties provided, as always, by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear. Now, go by and see Alex Gatewood, Rush, and the courteous staff there. Or you can shop online at their website, locker-room.biz. Beautiful new store downtown. Check them out. You'll love their clothes and their service. All right, that's going to do it for TITV. You can catch a replay tonight at 10:30. We're also going to be on the web at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night.